Welcome. Hello. It's time for Block Talk. We're on Bitcoin block 464877. What's the mempool look like? Oh, creeping up. Not looking good. You guys got to use some good fees. Bitcoin's an expensive network to use, but it's the best one out there. Let's see. Sponsor, Bitshares Exchange. These guys are launching the V2 of their site very shortly. So prepare for an overhaul by getting signed up today. Trade some of the greatest altcoins and fully compliant with all US laws. So they've really done their homework here. And yeah, I back them with all of my reputation. Well, last words. Anyways, GPU source. They're a great sponsor too. They're providing bulk orders of GPU pricing. So if you want to build a massive mining farm, you can get in touch with these guys, subscribe to updates, and they're happy to hold your hand and make mining like turnkey easy, which is a growing thing in this space, getting a bunch of GPUs and heating your house with it. And as usual, guys, I have the live chat here. I'll do my best to answer any questions. And we got a special show today because I'm in Vancouver with some of the awesome people here, right? This is great, and I'm super excited to do the show live like we used to do it. Because yeah, like this is really what it's all about, guys. Let's have a cool conversation. Let's talk with some cool people and really try and understand what this whole thing is. So on the show today to help with that, we have the one, the only, Dan Larimer. Hey, Dan.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, not a problem. Did I pronounce your name right? I'm sorry if I mispronounced it.
Oh, it happens all the time. It's Larimer.
Larimer. Okay. Well, I do this all the time with a lot of people online because everyone's got like some random writing for a username and sometimes it's their last name, but then you go to read it out loud and at the very last moment you're like, I've never heard it out loud before. Well, this is silly. Anyways, I really wanted to get the full rundown of your history, Dan, because you've been around for a long time. You've actually had conversations with Satoshi, I guess. Maybe not voice conversations or chats like we're doing today, but you did have some interactions with them?
In the early days on bitcointalk.org, I was chatting with him, and I didn't even realize it at the time until later someone dug up the conversations, and I realized the significance of it.
Did you not recognize like the handle or the username?
I was just paying attention to what the guy was saying, not the name of the person.
Oh, and that's a very important outlook to have on this industry, because ideas don't matter where they come from. It really just matters the strength of the idea, because we learned that ideas can really start revolutions, and same with basements. So you, I guess, what's your background? Like, are you an adept programmer? Like, you must have been doing some work in some space before Bitcoin.
Well, I've been programming since 5th grade or something like that. So I'm a very experienced programmer. Before getting into blockchain work, I was doing virtual reality, distributed consensus on shared state in a virtual reality world, if you will, where people can be in different parts of the country and sharing the same virtual space. I also did a lot of work in unmanned vehicles and systems. But I started getting into the freedom movement with Ron Paul. I wanted to invent my own currency because I recognize currency as what we need to do to actually get out of the system of slavery to the Federal Reserve. And so I was looking for solutions when I discovered Bitcoin. And so I got involved in Bitcoin very early on, 2009 timeframe, back when I actually mined several full blocks myself. So very early on a regular old CPU. Nice.
Yeah, that was very early, even before GPU days, I guess.
Oh yeah, long before GPU days. So then a couple of years passed, and I was surprised to see Bitcoin going up to $10, $15. Mt. Gox got their US bank account seized, and I realized that centralized exchange. So I set out how to solve storing dollar deposits on a blockchain without worry about bank accounts being seized. And that's when I came up with the idea for Bitshares and BitUSD, dollar pegged assets, things like that. So I set out to build that, came up with an entire decentralized exchange, and got that all up and running.
So is that where Graphene like came out of? Like what came first, Graphene or Bitshares?
Bitshares, actually, the requirements of Bitshares of building a decentralized exchange required development of new technology that didn't exist. For an exchange, you need very fast confirmation times, very low probability of transactions being reversed, and very high throughput. So low latency, high throughput, and finality. All things that no blockchain supported at the time, back in 2013. So came up with delegated proof of stake for that. Introduced, I guess at the time, 10-second blocks, which was incredibly fast. About 9 months into Bitshares, I realized that the architecture that we were using wasn't scaling. We were using the same underlying technologies as Bitcoin in terms of level DB and other UTXO models. And it just wasn't scaling. There was a lot of overhead. So I set out to solve those problems, and that's when I created Graphene. Graphene is a approach that's capable of doing 100,000 transactions per second on your local machine, and it's been demonstrated to handle 20,000 plus transfers per second on a distributed test network. So it's a very proven, scalable blockchain technology. It's really exciting to actually see it achieve the numbers, not just talk about hypothetically what it's capable of.
Yeah, and those numbers are very staggering. Like that, like our sponsor, Bittrex. Like I'm not sure how many transactions they're capable of having, but their reaction time I think is like 10 milliseconds, which for a centralized exchange, that's got to be like the standard. Like it receives the transaction and executes almost immediately because there's only one witness. So,
well, if you're in the United States, that's true. If you're in China, then you're talking about half a second latency. Mm-hmm. For your transaction. And actually on Bitshares, it's only about 1.5 seconds on average, because you're randomly be halfway through a block when you broadcast your transfer. And assuming that all the block producers are actually honest, your order is actually confirmed faster than that. In the local node, it's confirmed as soon as the orders come in. So it's operating almost as fast as a real exchange. Of course, you don't have the final decision for 1.5 seconds, but
so I've heard in the infrastructure and that they build like at the New York Stock Exchange, they give everyone the same length of cable because everyone wanted to be as close to the main like server, and they were having people requesting like ridiculous things. They're like, you know what? Everyone gets the same like 100 feet of cable. It doesn't matter if you're right beside the box or you're halfway across the room. So how does it work? Say if like someone places an order in Europe and someone places an order in Asia, and then the sell is in America, who gets that coin first if they come at the exact same time, right? There's got to be.
Well, think of it this way. You've got 20 different servers located all over the world, and they're randomly shuffling around. So basically it's random lottery how close you are to the server. So it's no fixed distance. Sometimes you might be right next to the server, same country. Other times you might be on the other side of the world. That gives you decentralization and fairness over time. No one's consistently closest.
Interesting. That's a really novel approach. So I guess the main $1 million question would be like, is this really a blockchain, or is it some other decentralized ledger technology, DLT being?
It's definitely a blockchain. You've got blocks that organize transactions into groups, and they're linked together in a history that is immutable. So it definitely meets the definition of a chain of blocks, and it's decentralized in the sense that there are more people per second or per minute that are confirming your transaction than there is in any other blockchain.
So is it proof of work or is it mainly proof of stake? I understand there's kind of like delegates in a certain way. So there's like people that have a higher level of trust in the network, so it allows you to do things faster. Is that kind of how this whole system works?
It's delegated proof of stake. So there's two processes, right? All blockchains have to decide who's going to produce a block and when are they going to produce it. Bitshares does it by approval voting. And all delegated proof of stake systems use approval voting. That's also kind of how Bitcoin does it. You have the hash power, which is voting, and it's voting for mining pools. And the mining pools are the ones that are actually producing blocks and deciding what transactions go into them. So there's delegation in both systems. The only thing that's different is the metric you use for determining how you're going to delegate to the block production. So something like Bitcoin, you've got 3 of 5 people confirming the average transaction. If you consider the 6 blocks after a transaction as the people that are confirming it. Whereas on something like Bitshares or Steem, you've got 15 out of 21 people within a minute versus 3 out of 5 in an hour. So it's a very, very decentralized process, very, very difficult to censor transactions. Because the people who are selected to produce blocks have a lot to lose by violating their trust and nothing to gain. They can block transactions, but they can't change the blockchain. They can't do arbitrary things.
So the delegation, like and using things faster, it requires, I guess, commitment of value, because if you own a large portion of this network, you have a bigger say in it. So that's more quantified, and that translates into faster times in this entire network, right?
Yes, and it's also approval voting. So someone with 1% of the stake doesn't get to control what happens. They have to be combined with other people who all have to approve the same people. So it might be that someone with 1% of the stake has no influence over block production, even though they're a whale by most standards. Unless they are voting for the people that are already widely accepted, they might be able to tilt it one way or the other. But they're just deciding between 2 people that are both universally accepted by almost everyone else. So with approval voting and top N people by total approval votes, you get a level of decentralization that is unparalleled. Even other proof of stake systems, the largest stakeholders are the ones that get to decide what happens, and there's nothing you can do to do anything about it.
So what's to stop me though from say I know who another person on the network is, and I'm like, hey, can I buy your server or your delegate off of you? And eventually, I can maybe make enough interest or enough money off of owning 2 that I buy a 3rd and a 4th. What are you buying from them? You're buying their revenue stream of block production, and you're buying their reputation, which would be burned because these are publicly campaigned for positions. Ooh. People know exactly who they are. People vet them. It's highly competitive. And the only thing you can a position is to produce the blocks. And it's very easy for people to vote you out after you get it. So you're not even guaranteed to keep the position. And in fact, if it's ever discovered that the position was sold off and the person who's running it is not still in charge of it, you'll likely get voted out almost immediately. So you haven't seen any issues where somebody started to have a monopoly on the network?
The only time there's a monopoly on the network is if someone has the vast majority of the stake, like 30 or 40%.
Oh, wow. Okay. So what I really see with proof of stake is versus proof of work, this whole argument that everyone seems to have, at least from the maximalist side, is proof of stake as a form of, I guess, permission. Because say I want to use the Bitshares network, I have to buy coins from someone, or if I want to mine, I have to have someone allow me onto the network. So in a way, that's a form of permission that someone in the system has to allow me to join it. Whereas, yeah, proof of work, anyone can jump on, so it's fully permissionless.
That's not true. In order to start mining Bitcoin, you have to have permission of a mining pool, or you have to buy huge buy-in to get enough hardware to have the opportunity to solo mine. And if you do solo mine, you still need the permission of the majority of the other block producers, who could just as easily ignore your block.
But would you say the same like consolidation of power is happening in Bitcoin as what is desired? Or maybe not consolidation is the right word, but there's definitely like lots of big trusted nodes in Bitshares. And now kind of the same thing is happening in Bitcoin. It's lots of big trusted nodes and miners.
It's managed. There's economic forces in play, economies of scale in play that are going to tend to centralize for efficiency's purposes. But yeah, it's possible with delegated proof of stake to actually define the level of decentralization that you're going to have. Bitshares and Steem, they both have a minimum number of people, and their minimum is greater than the decentralization in almost every other network.
So I was kind of interested that Steem actually had an element of proof of work in it. Does Bitshares have the same thing?
Half of the initial Bitshares were actually mined using a Bitcoin clone, ProtoShares. So yes, half of Bitshares were mined, and then the share dropped onto the final blockchain. Steem actually had mining on its own blockchain until earlier this year. It was removed because it wasn't actually providing any security. It was more a means of creating accounts without having to know anyone.
Yeah, so like kind of permissionless access, I guess.
You still have to have, I guess, some permission that people have to include.
It's definitely an order of magnitude lower, I would say, though, like with proof of work. Like to be a solo miner coming onto the network is not as much of a process as it is to try and buy coins from someone. Like you can effectively do it without talking to anyone. You just have to look like you're not nefarious in terms
for small amounts of value. But you have to remember that the cost just goes to your power company instead of to someone else, and the amount of rate at which you can consume power is very limited, right? If you wanted to consume $5 worth of power with a standard computer, it'd be running for a long time and a lot of hardware. That's a pretty high barrier to entry compared to buying a few Bitcoins off local Bitcoins and then paying for having an anonymous account registered.
Well, I don't remember asking permission from my power company to mine all winter, but I did
Yes, it's still a barrier to entry, but yes.
No, I understand that. That's a really interesting viewpoint. So this initial mining of Bitshares, when did that happen? Was that when Satoshi was still around, or was that?
Yeah, that happened November 5th, 2013 was when we started the launch of mining for Bitshares, and the mining continued through the launch of Bitshares in July 2014.
So if Satoshi was around, what would you think he would say about like your technology if he was able to look at your GitHub and throw a couple comments?
Depending on who you believe Satoshi is, I think Satoshi recognized that the Decentralized Autonomous Corporation shortly after I introduced it. So I think that Satoshi recognized that there's a need for governance and that Bitcoin is lacking it.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I look at the blockchain and as kind of almost like the printing press. There were many ways to copy a book before, but this one was almost like fundamentally different in terms of scale and how well it would work. And that doesn't mean like an inkjet printer isn't a form of that. Like he would kind of was that initial seed idea of able to like monetize a network properly. So would you say like if you didn't come across Bitcoin, would you have been able to create Bitshares?
I would say that Bitcoin introduced me to elliptic curve cryptography. It introduced me to a lot of At this point in time, the development in future projects is well beyond the concepts that were present in Bitcoin. The only thing that actually remains is the elliptic curve cryptography and the structure of blocks almost.
One sec. Just turning off some internet stuff. All right, I think you're coming in good. Yeah, the elliptic curve cryptography was very interesting to me too, because like it's a one-way math problem almost. You know, like you can't discern what the number was you had before, but then you can create a new number consistently afterwards. So that's really important for creating, you know, your private key and then turning it into a public key. And that's really what I thought was one of the main innovations when I first understood what the white paper was. But then, yeah, you understand more about was the idea, because this sounds very similar, the graphene, to like federated servers or kind of like different technologies that was already kind of going on earlier on, I guess. Like there was a lot of big innovations even back in like the 80s in terms of how to do distributed networking. It was just, I think the incentive structure was wrong to really do it properly. And Bitcoin was like kind of that final piece.
Sure. The emergence of peer-to-peer networks like Napster and everything after that really spawned a means of structuring communication. The internet got to a scale that more people could do it. The elliptic curve cryptography reduced the size of cryptographic messages and introduced other properties that the RSA cryptography didn't support. I tried building a blockchain with RSA technology, and it just doesn't work before I learned the elliptic curve stuff. So it's very interesting that all the technologies came together. And it's really the same thing. The advancements introduced with Bitshares and Steem are just bringing more computer science concepts to the table and scaling up the performance.
Yeah, no, a lot of things are kind of coming together at the right time. I mean, I was making connections the other day with GPU mining and machine learning being like very correlated ideas. Like they're very important to have together, because machine learning, we need some means of protection from it, and the same security that happens for individual users against each other. You know, like you only need to trust yourself. Like having an AI, they follow the same kind of almost laws of physics that keep you secure. Like if they can't break the public key, private key, I can't break it. Like, so there's a lot of systems that can't break it. So it's really important that they showed up at the same time. And it's also kind of interesting that you have a really subjective kind of mining. Like maybe all these GPUs are trying to find the cutest cat on the internet, and that's not worth a lot of money because they could have been mining that entire time. So you now have like an economic of like the GPU should almost be on all the time, because you always can get a base level of value out of like that hardware. Yeah, there's a marketplace for GPUs being connected to a network.
There's a marketplace and opportunity cost for just about everything.
And we'll be seeing it more in the future. I'm really excited to see like a lot of the different storage networks that are kind of propping up here, like StorageCoin, Saya, and then I think MadeSafe wanted to go even further with having like network resources, and then there's Golem, who wants to have just the supercomputing, like the GPUs available for other things, trying to create an ecosystem for that. So the space still has so much more to mature, and there's lots of cool technology out there. I'm curious what you know about IBM's project Hyperledger, because it sounds like it's very much a lot of the same features that Bitshares has.
Most of these projects actually don't have anywhere near the same features as Bitshares or Steem.
Oh, so humble.
What I will give you is that the marketing of almost every project out there is almost imperceptible different. You have to really know what's going on to see what's going on, and to see the similarities in the different approaches, or to actually understand what's different between them. Because on the surface, they all look the same. They're all promising very high throughput. But there's features like the account system, the account recovery process, just the way that throughput is achieved is very different in Bitshares and Steem than anything else out there. So there are just some things that you can't get around, the limits that are hard, like the performance of a single core CPU. You have to be very efficient in how you do your core business logic, or you're going to max out that CPU, and that's going to be your limiting factor, not the size of your network, but the size of a single CPU, and that's growing at a very slow rate of a couple % per year. So the future in blockchain is all in parallel execution of blockchains. And
yeah, it seems like Moore's law kind of slowed down, but I don't think he accounted for the amount of processing power would increase over time dramatically, but also the amount of electricity required for processing has gone down significantly, where this computer I'm calling you on has the same power as my phone does, and it runs on a battery. It's half the size. The Moore's law is much more than just computing power now. It is like the scale of the device and the amount of voltage required for it to operate.
But Moore's law was all about the number of transistors, and most of the transistors are now going toward parallel execution because there's limits by the speed of light and power density that make it very difficult to advance single thread performance. The number of calculations, sequentially dependent calculations per second that you can do is a very finite and limited resource that all blockchains have to overcome.
So how long would you say it takes for the Bitshares network to be have full consensus? Does it happen all within this one block? Like, is there a direct link between one block and the next, or is there kind of like the uncle system that we see with Ethereum, where it's kind of like there's almost multiple streams that are linked together?
Bitshares and Steem both produce blocks exactly every 3 seconds. With perfect timing, and you either produce a block or the block skipped, and you don't have a block for that time slot. And because everyone has an exact time when they're going to produce, assuming everyone is online, if they produce a block, that's going to be the block with near 99.9% certainty, which means you have 99.9% certainty after an average of 1.5 seconds. And then on from there. Now you have absolute irreversible certainty once 2/3 of the active block producers sign off, which on Steem is about 40 seconds. But that's only for the extremely paranoid, because if you take any block and you observe, well, what's the probability of it not being confirmed? It's infinitesimal.
Well, and I guess it's the value of what is the transaction. Like, if it's an upvote on Steem, if it doesn't get confirmed in the next block, or the network somehow forks, it doesn't get included. That's a real low value in terms of network transactions. But if I'm able to transact to somewhere like Bittrex, and I can send $100,000, sell it on the order books as soon as it shows up, and then undo that transaction, that's where the rubber meets the road. You got to actually have the system needs to work. There's serious money at stake then.
The only people that have the ability to do that are well-known publicly elected block producers. So if something like that happened to support defrauding an exchange, and if the exchange was accepting confirmations of less than 40 seconds, then you know exactly who is responsible and who to bring a lawsuit against. And but with 40 seconds for absolute irreversibility, there's no reason not to wait that long. And in fact, I believe that the speed at which transactions are confirmed is actually a really big problem to the overall security of the blockchain space, because you don't know that you've been hacked until your key is used to steal all your money and it's gone. There's no window of time during which you can see, hey, there's a transaction out there, and then you can work with your multi-sig friends and family to cancel it before you lose your money. So the reality is that blockchains as a whole need to slow down transactions, kind of like the current banking system. We like to say, oh, we can transact instantly, which is really great for some things like trading. But when you're transferring funds from your control to someone else's control, and they're large amounts, you definitely want a time delay in there, because that's the only way to secure the funds. Because systems and computer, doesn't matter if you're using hardware wallets or 1,000-factor authentication. Bitfinex has multi-sig, and they were hacked because all the keys were compromised and used at once.
Mm-hmm.
So the time delay is a critical aspect of security, because it allows you to heal and to recover, and that's something that's missing from almost everything except Steem at this point.
I believe Nexus has it as well. I recall them saying they had like reversible transactions, so it could go into the mempool, but you could cancel it after the fact within like, I don't know, 6 to 10 minutes or something. But yeah, that's a very interesting concept. And actually, I'm playing around right now with the standard Ethereum token. It's called like the ERC20, and just adding like little things to it, like a whitelist of addresses. And reversibility sounds like a really easy one to do. Like, if it's within 5 blocks of the transaction being broadcasted, and the person sends another command to it, it can be reversed. So
yeah, reversibility of 5 minutes is almost worthless. If you go to the bathroom, your money's stolen, right? Because you weren't awake or aware to have a time to respond. I think you definitely need hours, if not a day or two, of reversibility to secure large amounts of money.
So is that available for every transaction on Steem, or?
Steem's got 2 things that lock you, protect you, and it actually saved the network when a lot of keys and accounts are compromised. Because we have Steem Power, which is locked for 3 months, and we also have a savings account, which is 3 days.
And I guess the same concept too with editing a post, because I remember I could edit a post, and then after a day or two, it would like it would be locked in. Yeah. No, that's really good. I always find a typo after the fact.
Yeah.
Always.
Well, yeah, I think they just changed it so that you can edit it at any time, because we have account recovery, where if your keys are stolen and your owner key is updated, you can use any previous owner key along with your recovery partner to change the owner back. And there's only 2 people that can have your key, you and the hacker. And if they have to go and reveal themselves to the recovery partner, which is Steemit, who they've got your phone number and or email to verify you by, they have verified who the attacker is. And so the attacker's not going to show it. So you get your account back. So account recovery is critical combination with the time delay. And so you have like 3 things. You got your checking account, and that's all money that you can spend instantly, but it can be stolen instantly without anything. It's like the cash in your wallet. And then you've got your savings account, which you can spend within 3 days. And if it's stolen, you've got 3 days to recover it. And then you've got your long-term commitment, which is the Steem Power. And you've got months there to recover your account if it's compromised while you're not paying attention.
Yeah.
So time is a critical element of security that is overlooked, as well as the ability to have people recover your account using past keys and past authorities on the account in combination with a multi-sig versus just using the instantaneous owner of an account.
Yeah, and that's one thing that dealing with some customers now is like they want to have, the username, the password, but they want that little link right below it, forgot your password, because that doesn't exist in a lot of the blockchain space.
Forgetting your password is a different thing from having someone steal it or get a copy of your password. If you forget your password on Steem, even Steemit can't help you.
Okay. So
because having one of the old passwords is proof that you were a previous owner, and that's how the blockchain prevents anyone other than the owner or the hacker from getting control of the account, and it prevents Steem owner on the account because they have no control over the account whatsoever without the previous owner. And
I really like that approach. That's good. So when you were talking in there, I heard you mistakenly say we and then say they for Steem it. And it's fairly well known that you're no longer working directly with the project. So do you think you can give us kind of what your take of what exactly went down there? Like when I interviewed Ned last time, he said you were on Steem full time, and I was almost kind of surprised to hear that. So what about Bitshares? So can you give us your take of what went down, and what's the status on you working with and without Steem?
Yeah, so I started Steem with Ned to create Steem at Inc. So that Steem at Inc. could go on. I knew early on that I wanted to do a smart contract platform, and Steem was a stepping stone toward a longer vision. So I helped Ned bootstrap it, and when the time was right, then I left Steem, and Steem's in good hands, and they'll be able to continue. And now I'm working to build next contract platform, which was recently announced, called EOS. And there's going to be a major announcement about that coming up on Consensus this May.
So where are you putting the announcement?
I announced on Steem.
Of course, got to get those Steem dollars. No,
didn't accept any payment for Steem.
Oh, nice. I love that that's an option now, because it can show that you're more altruistic about whatever it is you're doing. No, and I do believe, Dan, you do a lot of really good work for the space, and Steem is an amazing platform, and I was thoroughly impressed with it. Regardless of my opinions of like the economic structure, the actual technical chops were there. I was surprised. I sent a little bit to Bittrex, and like before I got logged in, it was like there. I was just like, this is amazing. So bravo.
Steem is the first blockchain that has an equal mix of men and women on there, and it's the first one that people use without even knowing they're using a blockchain.
Yeah.
It's really an achievement. It's the first one with account recovery when you get hacked, and so there's a lot of firsts in Steem. Really brought home the point that every website can be powered by a blockchain. Every business should be powered by a blockchain, and there's no reason why the user experience needs to suffer just because you're on a blockchain, or why the users have to see things like hashes and addresses.
Because it's so hard to bring people into the space because it's such a wall, like, you know, the user experience just isn't quite there. Like, you know, every Qt wallet looks the same with the same 3 tabs, and like I got normal people. I got people that have no idea about, you know, crypto or anything. I'm like, to use it, and yeah, they made a couple dollars in Steem, and they're like, yeah, no, like, what can I do with this now? I'm like, well, you can get Bitcoin now really easily, and it brought a lot of people into the space. And yeah, you make a good point there, where I'm very balanced demographic too. And yeah, I think regardless of what your opinion is of Steem, if you're watching this, you got to admit that it was a net benefit for the space, and it still is.
Well, it's a huge experiment in decentralized governance and decentralized budgeting and allocation. What Steem does is it allocates the money that Bitcoin allocates to mining to all the users by a democratic voting, social media style allocation process. And that is just a legitimate way of allocating a currency. In fact, it might be more legitimate because more people can participate in the process than just those who are technically skilled enough to run mining hardware. And so it builds this community. It builds content that has lasting value to the network in terms of long-term search engine optimization, and traffic, and all those things are adding long-term value versus the transient value of mining.
Yeah, and I think there's definitely, like, it's going to be around for a while, and they're doing improvements to the economic structure. Like, and I've told Ned my opinions on it, and I've taken those into consideration. So there's definitely like some DAO elements where I'm not a very active person on Steem, but like I definitely see the benefit of it, and I definitely try and post when I can. Unfortunately, I didn't post this post. But someone in the audience did, and I'm very thankful for Jimmy for setting this all up, because Jimmy's a real honest guy, and brings me a lot of good guests. But yeah, I'm just curious, like, where do you think like the value is going to come into the system to pay for Heidi Travels to go to all these different places in the world? Because if she is going to be this, professional blogger that travels the world, like that value has to come from somewhere.
Where's the value that comes in to pay for all the electricity, the billions of dollars that are being spent mining stuff, right? The money comes in. You don't necessarily need money to come in as long as the people value it. And there's lots of things that can come in. Attention's coming in. Influence is something that people desire. So people bring money in for the influence they get within the social standing of the ecosystem. So there's lots of reasons why there's value there, why people perceive value, and where there's value, money will come. And that's, it's no different than having 3 bloggers get together and say, let's start a business. We'll allocate ourselves 1/3 of the shares and we'll just start writing. Steem just opens it up and scales it up so that you can have tens of thousands of bloggers all participating in the business and all allocating equity in the business according to an algorithm that they all agree to. And in that process, you've got this massive production of content out of nowhere, a website that moves to the top 9,000 sites in the United States in less than a year. I think it's top 9,000 in the whole world in less than a year. All crowdsourced content. And that's the power of aligning incentives through a token. And the people that are part of the community value it because it's like the points. It's the credit you get for having contributed something. It shows that you did something for other people. And that's what money is. Yeah,
like money or value, like value is really 3 different things. Like of course it's money, and like money can be so many different things. It could be Bitcoin, and could be a lot of, it's a very subjective thing, like to say this is worth value. Then there's time. You never can make any more time. So if I put a lot of time on to Steem it, I maybe get a return of value back for that. But like I'm definitely contributing value when I spend my time on Steem. And then there's reputation. Reputation is something that like you can give to people, and like it kind of spreads and it can link to each other. Like I at the beginning of the show, I backed my reputation behind Bitshares. That adds value to their platform, because like if I'm willing to back it, then other people will too. So like those 3 elements are really what I guess you need to have in like these autonomous communities. And you know what, money is probably the easiest one to come in. Getting time and reputation is the hardest.
Yes, it's really amazing what Steem has accomplished just based on technology alone in the community. It's all been grassroots. There's been no really big backers, no big money that's been behind Steem. It's an entirely grassroots project, and it's done incredibly well in a very short period of time. And to really talk about the technology that's behind both Steem and Bitshares, Steem was conceived January of 2016, and it was implemented and launched within 3 months with a website and functional user interface 5 months. So, and this is a very capable blockchain, conceived and launched, doing stuff that other people haven't been able to do with smart contracts in years and lots of money. All of Steem was built with a seed round of $225,000.
Not too bad. Now, was that to contract your services, or like were you kind of in it for just starting a new company? I'm curious, like how was your involvement really like measured in Steem? Like were you part of the team and like contributing time and reputation towards it, or were you actually was money involved?
Money came in from a third party to fund the company, and it paid for the developers, and I was a co-founder, in the project. But
so if Ned does Ned still talk to you and ask for some advice from time to time? I mean, it's your technology he like that you've created. Like obviously, it's nice to be able to ask the creator, like, hey, like what do you think the best way of going about adding this new feature is? Like, is this possible? Who should we get to do it? Are you able to do it? Is that still kind of the relationship you guys have?
When necessary, but he's got a great team there who's been working with me for years on Bitshares and Steem, and that team's capable of doing everything they need to do. I've trained them well.
Yeah, and I'm getting the impression that it's very cohesive. Like Jimmy is very involved in Bitshares and in Steem, and then also you have some new networks coming out. I understand like there's EOS, but there's PeerPlays. Is that its own version? And AppTrade, I believe, is another one.
Yeah, I'm not involved in any way with PeerPlays, but yes, it is based off the same technology as Bitshares. And then EOS is using the design philosophy of it's using chain base and app base and other things, but it's taken things to a whole new level.
Yeah, like it sounds like I can run any contract I want on it because, like with Steem, Steem dollars is baked into the underlying protocol. It's not like something that someone is running. It's an actual like feature that's can't be removed, right?
Yeah. So EOS is a smart contract platform designed for parallel execution of smart contracts, and I can't really say too much about it at this time, but that's the idea, is to give the performance of Steem and Bitshares for single-threaded applications, but then scale it up to horizontal scaling for as many cores and or computers as you can throw at it.
So a lot of different like quote Steems or PeerPlays, and then they're all interoperable.
Yes, the idea was that when we were building Steem, there was no other smart contract platform that was actually capable of deploying the application on. You couldn't deploy Steem or Bitshares on something like Ethereum. There's just the block times are too long. There's reordering. The gas costs are too high. There's just a lot of real practical technical limitations that prevent applications that are trying to give the user experience. Bitshares replicates a centralized exchange performance and reaction time pretty closely compared to any other blockchain on the market. And Steem gives you an experience like Reddit or Medium with very fast thing. So if you want to replicate those experiences, you need a very high throughput, low latency blockchain processing tens or hundreds of thousands of transactions per second. Facebook's like 52,000 likes per second. Right? If you want to do Facebook on a blockchain, you need to have some serious horsepower and the underlying technology.
That's the example I used with a lot of people trying to explain like a transaction, like a like on Facebook is like a transaction. The difference is who is saying that it happened and telling every other user. If it's this core entity, or if it's the user experience is actually the same. Like that's why I think Steem was so successful. It's like nobody really knew what was going on in the background, and it's like, oh yeah, it's blockchain based. Whoa, what? Okay, cool, whatever. I don't care. I'm over it. But
I think Bittrex, if you wanted to put Bittrex on a blockchain, they do 2 to 10,000 transactions per second on a slow day.
Yeah.
So that's the type of throughput that you need for real world businesses. And Bittrex is a smaller exchange compared to some of the bigger ones, which I'm sure probably do 10 times that. Mm-hmm. So it's really a requirement for businesses that want to operate on a blockchain, and blockchains provide a ton of value. But you need hundreds of thousands of transactions per second. You need horizontal scalability. You need an easy programming environment for developers who want to build these applications and maintain consensus without having to worry about all the details about running your own network. And ideally, you'd have interoperability where many different people can run and communicate in a trusted environment. So if you wanted to run something like an exchange and Steem on one blockchain, Well, neither one of those applications could run alone on something like Ethereum, but you really need to, if you want to build a general purpose platform where lots of businesses come, each of which need thousands of transactions per second, you need a horizontally scalable system.
Yeah. No, so I watched an old interview that's on this channel. It was before I really started doing YouTube stuff, but there was quite a few people involved, and you were on the show as well with some of the older original gangsters here at Decontrol. And you had said you were having lunch with Vitalik, so I was kind of curious the relationship you two have, and if there are lots of flavors of your network in his code base, or are you kind of consulting or even keeping? Are you contributing at all to the advancement of Ethereum? And because they want to have 3-second block times too, they understand delegated proof of stake is the only way to operate at those levels.
Well, Vitalik came out here a few years ago. We had a great talk on delegated proof of stake, covered the theory. I really, really like Vitalik. I think he's a smart individual. He's more mathematically gifted than I am. And I really enjoy working with him. But he's very, very busy on Ethereum, and I've been incredibly busy on Bitshares and Steem. So we don't cross paths too much, but I think I have a lot of respect for him.
Yeah, I love how open-minded he is. Like, he can look at another project and like maybe have a criticism about it, but it's almost always constructive criticism. Like, it's not just I don't like it and doesn't give a reason. It's like, well, no, here's maybe a little flaw you should maybe consider. And like, I'm running my own Ethereum altcoin project too, and he was actually thrilled to hear that we were doing our own developments and trying to make it work for our own use cases. So much the same way that like Pure Plays, you know, is a Bitshares altcoin. It's kind of like validation when someone can run the same code or like build the same system, and it's open source and bring their own value, bring their own reputations, bring their own money. Like, there's a lot of good stuff that can be done, and we're all able to collaborate in this open source environment very easily.
It's great working with a lot of people in the space. There's lots of great minds. I think other people are so busy doing things, they have a hard time looking up and keeping track of what everyone else is doing. There's just a new project every other week, maybe even every other day, it seems like. And all these different projects are all advancing different niches of the technology. But it's an exciting time.
Mm-hmm. No, and I like to say the space is very much like a TV show, and every day there seems to be a new episode. I can't do Blocktalk every day. I'm sorry, guys. I'm not looking to make it my business. I could maybe do it on Steem and get paid enough to do it, but no, it's better this way when we can organize a chat with a high value proposition like with you, Dan. And I appreciate your time for joining us. And I know probably some of the other guys at the table here maybe have some questions because they're listening very intently. Does anyone have a question for Dan?
Sure, I'll go ahead.
All right.
Dan, thanks again for your time. I'm just curious, how is your time split currently between current projects, upcoming projects? What does your average day look like?
My average day is 100%, 110% devoted to EOS.
Good to know. Okay, thank you.
Nice. So like EOS is a very key component then in the advancement of Bitshares?
It's its own project. I'm just one member of a team that's doing this. So EOS is not just, it's not another one of my projects. It's a team effort.
Nice.
I'm just contributing on a technical basis.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah, I have some questions. So my name is Paul, and I'll be writing an article for actually there's an Institute of Network Cultures out of the University of Amsterdam, and I'll be writing an article on Steem because it's really interesting. But one of the big problems I find when I try to explain how Steem works is the Steem power and the Steem dollars, and I try to explain that to people, and I don't really fully understand it myself. Can you currently, in like layman's terms, explain what these three things are?
Yeah, the easiest analogy is a company. You've got your company shares, and then you've got debt of the company, right? The company owes you money. Mm-hmm. And if the company defaults on the debt, then your debt gets converted to equity. So the idea is, as long as you believe the equity of the company is worth more than the debt of the company, then the debt's good. So it's using an economic system that says, hey, here, I'll owe you $1 worth of shares, and the $1 worth of shares is defined by a price feed coming from 20 independent sources, each of which are monitoring the markets and trying to make sure that's right. And so you have this sort of guarantee of a conversion there. And the amount of outstanding Steem dollars is like a couple % of the entire market cap of Steem, which means that Steem would have to fall to 1/20th of its current value, which would be like from 60 million to less than 3 million, and you'd still have $1 worth of Steem. That kind of concept. So because the market knows that, the market tends to trade it around $1. Now it's been recently that it's actually been trading for more than $1, and that's because there's a limited rate at which it's created as people are posting content, and the demand for people looking for something that's a hedge against downward trading cryptocurrencies is very high. So particularly in light of Bitfinex's trouble with the banks, right? It's Mt. Gox 2013 all over again. The banks are preventing the funds from transferring and whatever is going on there.
It's funny that you bring up Bitfinex, because I think I have a fairly good grasp of Steem dollars and Steem. And as a trader, I'm very interested in the data that I can collect to kind of understand, oh yeah, there's not a lot of Steem dollars out right now. Oh, somebody's converting a lot. There must be a rise coming up or something like that. It's very transparent in its nature. And then I look at something like, BFX and Tether, and it's like the exact opposite. I have no idea what's going on. They're issuing new tethers out. And it's like this whole system is very convoluted, and that scares me. I understand there's a lot of criticism of Steem dollars and Steem, but at the same time, you do enough research and learn how it works. It actually, in theory, does work.
But the volume on Steem dollars is about 1/3 of the entire supply of Steem dollars. Or more. Sometimes, some days, it's multiples of the entire supply that's trading. So Steem dollars are very liquid for an asset with only about 1 million in circulation right now. But I think it's a huge success. There's some opportunities, I think, to to keep the price down. But I view it as a Steem dollar's insurance against falling below $1, rather than a guarantee of a perfect peg. And depending on the perspective you take, it's an interesting crypto instrument.
Now, I believe you also asked about Steem Power.
That's the third thing, yeah.
So Steem Power is nothing more than Steem that has been put into a staking contract and is earning interest. And in order to remove from the staking contract, it takes time. So Steem Power is just Steem in a staking contract that's earning interest, and while it's in the staking contract, you get voting rights too.
But is it actually providing any metric of security beyond just the subjective voting on the future of the network? I mean, on block security? The
security it provides is twofold. One, earlier, if you're hacked, the hacker can't take all your money immediately, so that's good. So it provides security there. It also provides security in the sense that the voters can't vote in a way that will harm the network and then exit immediately. They're stuck in the network for at least 3 months, which is enough time to suffer any price damage that would cause by their voting. And if they're a big player, it keeps the big players honest because they've got a lot of money to lose by voting poorly.
So if I have a lot of Steem power, is that actually a metric of control of something like a hard fork?
You indirectly control a hard fork through the producers, the block producers. Okay. Because you elect the producers decide on the hard fork.
All right. Do you have another question?
I've got one more. I got a few more, but one of the big problems I saw on Steem was the rise of the whales, right? And then suddenly there was lots of people that had a lot of power, and lots of people that had next to nothing, right? And then now you had these dolphins kind of like in the middle.
I had a fun time screwing around with someone who was like, he flagged me, and I'm like, I went into his account, I'm like, flag. He had no money at the end of the day, and he was like, dude, you're picking on me. I'm like, it's a game we can play. But I mean,
there's an economic principle. I think it's a Pareto principle. That's in the 80-20 rule, and it exists in all financial markets. And even if you gave everyone the same starting wealth and you allowed free trade to occur, in a very short period of time, you get this 80-20 principle. 20% of people have 80% of the wealth, and it's recursive. Within the 20%, 80-20 applies again. And you see that in Bitcoin, you see that in hash power distribution, you see that everywhere in nature. It's just a fact. So when you have a voting system that's stake weighted, it was causing some issues because you had thousands of people, but most of the influence was in the hands of a few people, and they just couldn't process it, even though they had the best intentions, as I believe most of them did. They might have different opinions about which way to go, so they wouldn't necessarily all pool in the same direction, and they couldn't review all the content. But with recent changes to Steem, including the ability to delegate your Steem power to other people, and the agreement or a truce among the whales to not vote with their full weight, but to vote as peers with everyone else, it's really increased the democratic nature of Steem.
Oh, okay, that's good, yeah. Because that was one of the big problems. It seemed like the guys that had joined in early immediately got that 20% or that whole element there. So
I believe, I'm not sure because since I left Steem, but we had talked about having delegating a fixed amount of Steem power to all accounts that are behaving. Mm-hmm. So we could always retract the delegation of our Steem power from an account that started misbehaving. Mm-hmm. And in that sense, we empower all the little guys to be like dolphins. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if that's going on, but I suspect that it is, or it could be going on. And the truce of the whales, where they just don't vote with all their weight, has mm-hmm. really leveled the playing field.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because like my last interview with Ned didn't do so well on Steem. I was very disappointed. And I mean, I interviewed the co-founder. I mean, come on, guys. Like, you're not excited about this? But I think it's because people can look at my wallet and see that I send some to Bitshares because I manage balanced portfolio, and Steem is part of that. And I didn't want to be on the platform that way. But I understand. I totally do. And maybe if I post this after the show's done, I can get rewarded for my time here. But I really I do like the platform. I do a lot, and I do still go on and see what the top posts are because it's more than just crypto there, but it's definitely a good resource.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's some new stuff on there now.
Another one?
Yeah,
you got a list here, don't you?
Yeah, there's a few of them. Yeah, I was ready for this. So just to go back to the difference between Steem power and Steem dollars, would it be correct at all to say that I know like when you post something, you're able to post it into, I believe it's Steem dollars or Steem, or like you can kind of divide it. Is it those two? Or
yes. When you post something, you can either get paid all in Steem power or a combination, half Steem power, half Steem dollars.
Dollars, okay.
Or you can decline payout altogether, like I do.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. But bypassing declining, so it seems like okay. So when I create a post, is it correct to say that I could take whatever earnings come from that post and I either put them back into Steem, so that would be the Steem power, or take them out myself, which would be Steem dollars.
Yep.
So they go out to Bitcoin or whatever I want to use. And then how would Steem fit into that little model there? Just Steem by itself.
Steem power is just Steem that's locked up. So there's just Steem.
Got it. Okay.
Right. So that's the only difference.
Okay. Okay. Cool.
That might be one of the criticisms from the critics is that it seems too easy for you to accidentally lock your money up. But I mean, you're getting money for free anyway, so you should be contributing to the well, not free, but you should be contributing to the platform by locking your Steem up. So it's definitely just like a double-edged sword in terms of the argument.
It goes I think, from being manipulated emotionally in the markets. Oh, it's down, I should sell it all. And then you hold off. Steam Power also does level the playing field a little bit. There's a misconception that the insiders were able to dump when Steem spiked to 400 million. But the reality is no one was able to dump, at least not everything, because everyone, 99% of the network, was locked in at the time, a 2-year power down period, which meant that they could tap at most 1% per week. So at those high prices, everyone was getting out a teeny tiny little bit, and then by the time it fell, it really evened things out, and it prevented a situation where the first person out the door won. And so I think that there's a lot of other benefits in terms of stabilizing the emotional response to the market for a lot of people who would otherwise probably end up selling low and buying high.
Well, and I do a lot of community management, and we're really careful in terms of like doing bounties and stuff, because it's really easy to get people that are just there for a quick buck. And like, that's what maybe my main criticism of Steem is, like, it's really easy for people to get value. They create a new post and like they get $10. Like, that's a decent amount of money if you're in, a third world country. But yeah, long term, you want people who are very committed and believe in the value of the project, because that's where the value of the project comes from, is the people that hold the token.
Yes.
So yeah, it's good to have these ebbs and flows, right?
Well, I think that there's just all this euphoria right when it sort of came out, and since then it's been it did attract a lot of people that are just trying to get money out of it, and there was a bit of a culture shock. Some people were there for the money, other people were there for the community. The long, slow price decline from September to March was it really filtered out a lot of those people, and the people that remain are very passionate about the project. They care about what's going on, and it's a great community. And since then, it's been growing steadily, right? It's gone up significantly since I left. I don't know if I should be offended or not.
Yeah, there are lots of like even meetups, right? Like I saw, what was it, Copenhagen, I think, and then like somewhere in Germany they had a few of them.
Yes.
Yeah, but then I saw in the beginning. I remember like one of the things that really turned me off of it was how everybody was. There was that whole I think it's like a Slack or something, right? And everyone's like, "Hey, by the way, I made a new post. Check it out," right? And just like asking, like begging for, "Please, here, give me $1." And I was like, it was because you check out the post and you're like, "Oh, like you haven't had an English course ever, right?"
Yeah.
Like
Hey, all the problems with Steem are mostly just same social problems any group of people has. Particularly when you start throwing money in the mix. So we're really battling human nature, and there's only so much technology can do. Yeah. But I tell you that people do tend to be less trollish, more polite than you would find on other forums. And that's because their reputation impacts their future earning power. And getting people to follow you and large stakeholders to follow you, avoiding flags. Even though sometimes flagging is abused, but good behavior is the best way to avoid flags and to have sympathy when you are flagged. So those things add up to create what's hopefully an incentive structure that promotes growth and cooperation and good behavior rather than trolling.
I'm fairly impressed with like Reddit's user base. I know it's really exploded and it's very fractaled now in terms of like where Reddit users are. But like overall, like the quality of Reddit posts, like you go in the comment section, you usually get some pretty good quality answers back. There are intelligent people who are on the platform and contribute to the platform. Steem is definitely like, I don't know how much further ahead, but it's definitely per capita, it's better because they're like, Reddit karma doesn't mean anything. Clearly, there's a market for it in Russia or something. But I definitely think like you guys have a really good product. And if say Ryan X Charles, we've had him on the show too and talked a little about Steem. If he was still at Reddit, I imagine like you and Ned and a lot of the Steem team would be either consulting or have integrated Steem into the Reddit platform, because it's really how Reddit should operate. Like if anything, like
Facebook, right?
Yeah, like
honest, right?
any social media platform has a lot more flaws than what Steem has. And like yeah, it's definitely an improvement because none of these systems are perfect, but they're definitely better. And that's the key mantra I think we need to remember with our lovely show here that we've killed about an hour and 10 minutes with. So Dan, it's been really great talking to you, and we got a little tradition on the show here. You're probably familiar with it from last time, where we guess the price of Bitcoin in 1 week's time, and we got some serious volatility going on here, so it's going to be hard, but let's see if we can get a good prediction market going, because we just broke almost 1600. Yeah, we hit like 1615 last night. Oh my God, savages in the market. So Dan, what do you think the price of Bitcoin is going to be next week at this time?
1600.
1600. Oh, he's got some Bitcoins, wants to be stable. Yeah. Canadian dollars are becoming more and more worthless. I'm loving that it's a more American-based currency. But man, we almost need like Steem Canadian dollars. Be a whole other factor in that market. Paul, what do you think it's going to be?
I think it's going to go up. I think maybe 17 even. 16, 50, 17.
Speculator.
Yeah.
Jen, what do you think?
6,669.
Okay, I like it.
Canadian
Manuel, I guess 1,500.
Going down.
Okay, and sorry, my new friends in the space here.
I would also say in the low 1500s,
1520 in your name?
ANIL. ANIL.
ANIL.
It's for Bitcoin.
1620?
Yeah.
1520. Okay, and you are?
I'm Earl,
Earl, okay.
and I'll say 1650.
1550. All right. I'm probably going to price this right, everyone, because I think there's a lot of euphoria in the space, and we need to pour a cold bucket of water on this because it doesn't seem sustainable. But I'm going to say 1250. Yeah, I'm going to undercut everyone. I was going to say $1 and price is right it real hard, but I think that's a pretty good spread, guys. I think we got a pretty good prediction market going here.
I hope I win.
We all win in that case, yeah. So I think we all secretly hope that Jen wins. No, this has been great, Dan. I appreciate your time, and I hope when EOS has a bit more users on it and we can kind of play around with it, we can have you on and really talk more about how it works and how it's different.
Can I just ask one quick last one? Really fast. Sorry, is Steem hosted on a central server, or is it really peer-to-peer, or just a quick answer?
It's a peer-to-peer network with for all the blockchain aspects of it, all the transactions, the posts, the comments, the voting is peer-to-peer with probably 50 plus nodes around the globe at least. Maybe hundreds of nodes around the globe. And the steemit.com itself is centralized, but there's also busy.org and a half dozen other websites that are all hosting the same content from the blockchain. So there's many interfaces to Steem. Steem is just one of many. So it's decentralized in almost every respect.
Cool.
Awesome, thank you.
I didn't know about the other platforms. That's amazing news. That really shows, the decentralization of like the underlying protocol with different front ends and clients. All right. Well, this has been a great chat. Thanks again, Dan. Thank you all for joining us in the space here. I feel very welcome and at home again. And everyone in the audience, I know I didn't really get to any of your questions. I saw you were chatting away. We had up to like 65 live viewers, which is amazing. Clearly, Steem has a lot of very passionate people, and the Bitshares community loves to sit through an hour of my grovel and really enjoy the show. So again, thank you. Like, comment, subscribe, do all the fun social networks in the bottom, and maybe look out for a Steemit post if I got time for it. And we'll see you in the next 1,000 blocks.
All right.